Some people don't naturally care how the people they hurt feels. I'm doing this video because I frequently receive questions from individuals, both married and unmarried. And the common theme that emerges is lack of empathy, which tends to be at the root of many issues they face. Because if there is a pain caused by one, the other person is like, you don't just get it. You don't understand what I feel. You don't know the magnitude of what you have done, how the pain is. I feel you should have empathized with me more. And sometimes one person may be feeling like they care. They may be feeling like they are showing up for this person. They are feeling like they understand. But it's not just connecting, it's force. Don't get couples connected. That if I'm showing empathy, really believe that is real. You can feel empathy from me. Empathy can be felt. You can feel and experience empathy from me. Because you can sympathize with me. You can feel bad and feel pitied for me. But when it comes to empathizing with me, now you are putting your legs on my shoes and walking for a mile to really understand what I'm feeling. You are feeling the pains with me. And this is very, very important, especially if you are the one that caused the pain. Let's get into 5 ways you can begin to show empathy in a relationship. Number 1, actively listen more than you speak. The way in which you can empathize is connecting through communication. You should be listening twice as much as you want to speak. Oftentimes we are ready to jump in, tell our perspective, how we think, how we feel, what we see, what we want to see. But it's not your opportunity to do that because your spouse is the one who is hurting. So you have to give them the center stage and begin to listen. Listening is one of the most important skills in communication that many people struggle the most. So one thing you have to do to be an active listener is to give your undivided attention. You can't be going through your phones. You can't be reading a book. You can't be watching TV. You got to be able to pay attention. It's acknowledging what is being said, giving both verbal and non-verbal response, because you are seeking to understand first before you seek to be understood. So allow your partner to just release. Allow your partner to talk. Take note if you have to. Just be there, just be present. Just give all of you to that conversation. Is very much important to your partner. Don't interrupt them. Once they are done talking, make reference of the notes. Engage in the conversations. Try to ask questions, peel the layers and get what they are trying to say. And number 2 is express your perspective. The time to give your perspective is the time you either lose or gain. You should know that you may have an epic fall depending on what you say, but you have to embrace it. Because our natural inclination is to move to defense, right? Or to say stuff like, well, I didn't mean that, or I didn't know, or it wasn't my fault, or it's really, you caused me to do that, you caused me to react the way I reacted. That is not empathy. If you really want to empathize, you can say stuff like, oh, that must make you to feel awful. You know what? I can really understand why you would feel and think the way you did. You move right to empathy by saying, listen, I know exactly how you feel. Because when I was 15 years old, when I was 30 years old, when I was 10 years old, or just last week, I was caught up and I was really upset. And I actually think I was going to do this. Now your partner is accepting that, oh, he understands where I'm coming from, or she understands where I'm coming from. So you start moving into a response from your perspective on how you understand, not from your perspective on how you are innocent. Right? Or how you didn't mean to do it, or anything like that. But you truly understand what the person is going through. Number 3, be vulnerable. Now, vulnerability is so critically important. Now, think about it in business transactions, when you are dealing with colleagues, when dealing with customers, when dealing with associates, even when dealing with friends. Sometimes we have the tendency of staying in a safe zone. And staying in a safe zone is staying in spaces that are comfortable, because none of us want to be uncomfortable. But one of the things we always say in intimate conversation is that you got to get comfortable with uncomfortable. Now think of vulnerability this way. Vulnerability in this context means being emotionally naked. How many of you in marriage have no problem of becoming physically naked? That is physical intimacy. But emotional intimacy is when you take off all the barriers that prevent emotional connection. Now listen, we talk about this example all the time. If you are having physical intimacy as married couple, sometimes you use a condom. Why? A condom is used for protection against what? STDs and pregnancy. But oftentimes in emotional nakedness, we put condoms on our hearts to protect our feelings and our emotions. We put on condoms on our head to protect our thoughts from being judged. If we are walking into an emotional conversation like this, fully guarded, fully protected, we cannot be vulnerable. Because vulnerability exposes our woundedness. It allows your spouse to see that, you know what? I'm not a superman. I'm not a superwoman. I have my struggles. I have the things I'm dealing with. I'm not perfect. I cry too, right? And so one of the ways to really empathize with your spouse, because they're sharing their hearts, their pains, what they are going through, is for you to be vulnerable and tell them, you know what? I understand what you feel, because I have pains too. I'm human. I'm not a robot. I'm not an android. I'm not an AI. I have flesh and blood. So I understand what you are going through. So what happens sometimes? One, the spouse feels that you don't care. You don't understand because you are not hurt the way I am hurt. And you may never get hurt the way I am hurting. So you don't understand. Because their hurt is different. But you can share your hurt. Pain is pain. You may not have the exact experience your spouse is having at the moment. But when your spouse is sharing this moment with you, flash your mind back. There is a time you were hurt of something. Link that pain with what your spouse is going through. You will truly understand what your spouse is feeling. Number 4, don't make assumptions. People have all kinds of misunderstandings based on assumptions. As a matter of fact, assumption is the lowest form of knowledge. The best thing to do when we assume something is happening or we feel hurt by things is that we go into the step before. That is, communicate those things clearly and allow yourselves to have the stage. Because that is why you came together to say, hey, listen, there is some things going on here. And I just want to make sure that we both understand what we are saying here. That is the opportunity you have to clarify. Make your point, get understanding, so that you don't have to move with assumptions. Because if you do move only on assumption, your empathy is almost forced. Because I can't empathize with you on what I think you felt or what I think you are going through. I need to actually talk to you, get clarity on what is really going on with you, so that I can say, hey, I understand you, I see you, I feel you, I get what is going on with you. So it's really important for us to not make assumptions. Then the final point, use your imaginations. You know, there is something powerful about imagination. Imagination allows you to expand beyond your knowledge. I remember what Albert Einstein said, that imagination is more important than knowledge because we are limited by what we know. But if we can tap into the faculty of our brain, our imagination, we are able to go into spaces, worlds that our knowledge will not allow us to go. So if you can't understand what someone is going through because you haven't really been in their shoes, you want to close your eyes and begin to imagine, begin to see, think. All of the senses, sight, smell, touch, you can bring that into your mental faculty and begin to create the vision and the picture. Think about it. Many people get up in the morning and begin to visualize themselves and experience even before they experience it. It's all in their mental faculty. Try to experience what your spouse is going through the power of your imagination. Guess what? You are training your subconscious mind to embrace something, and when you begin to do that, all of a sudden things begin to change. You begin to show up in the way you didn't before, and you begin to have a level of intimacy. So actively listen more than you speak. Express your perspective. Be vulnerable. Don't make assumptions and use your imagination. That will be all for now. See you on the next video and bye for now.